My name is Mark and I head up product and client services here at OpsBase. So welcome to the weekly webinar. This week we're going to be deep diving into the notification system that's available in OpsBase. As I'm going through the presentation, if you have any questions about what I'm talking about, then please feel free to type those out in the chat. And at the end of the presentation, I'll take a look at those questions and answer them as best I can. If you've got any questions that are related to other things, please feel free to submit those as well. If I can answer them at the end of the presentation, I will. Otherwise, I will follow up with you after the webinar finishes. It's going to be a fairly quick webinar, so we don't take up too much of your time, 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll go into your questions if there are any. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the different types of notification that you can receive. So the first one is very obvious, it's email notifications. And because of the nature of email, not everybody checks every email as it comes in. These are really best for non-urgent information. The benefit of having an email is that at the end of the day, or maybe it's a lunchtime or something, you can open your phone, flick through, and the information has come directly to you via email. And what that means is that you don't necessarily have to log into the OpsBase system to see the notifications there. It's coming to you. The other notification types are device, or sometimes called push notifications, and in-app notifications. I will explain what these are in more detail, but this type of notification is really best for a very timely prompt. It's like your phone pinging the second that the notification happens. So if you need to know then and there, we recommend using device and in-app notifications. So just to explain what a device notification actually is, it's the kind of notification that appears on your device, whether that's a mobile phone or a tablet. If you are not in the OpsBase app, if you're not actively using it, so you might be using another app on your phone, or maybe your phone is actually locked, it's the type of notification that's going to pop up then, and it looks a lot like this on an Apple iOS device. The in-app notifications are going to be displayed when you're actually using the OpsBase app. So maybe you're in the middle of something, but if you receive a notification, it's going to pop up inside the app. And then you've got a choice. You can sort of say, okay, this is something that I want to action straight away, in which case you would click view, view issue, whatever it is. Or if you want to carry on doing what you're doing, you can just click dismiss and the notification is gone, but at least you're aware of that thing. The other thing that you have available to you inside the app is the alerts tab, which is a button at the bottom, looks like a bell. And the alerts tab is actually a history of every notification that you've received. And what that means is that if you decide to come back to the app at a later time, you can actually scroll through and see what's happened in the progress. And early on in the history, you might have a notification saying, oh, this new issue has been raised. And later on in the history, you might see that someone's commented it on, and then maybe somebody's actioned it, and then perhaps somebody's even closed it. And you'll have all of those notifications, so you can actually see the history of it. And of course, if you tap on one of these alerts, then it will take you through to the actual item that alert is referencing. So there are different kinds of triggers that are going to set off one of these alerts, that we call them events. And there are various different events that would trigger an alert for ops. So we'll talk about these first. So when an op is due, which means when it should be started or can be started, that can be a trigger to send an alert out. Okay, I say it can be because these are all settings that you can control. On this little graphic here, we can see at the bottom left corner, there's a couple of people. That's to indicate that this alert can be sent to the people who are supposed to perform the op. And on the top right, we can see a little grayed out person. And that's to indicate that this notification can also be sent to the supervisor of an op. Now, probably the supervisor doesn't want to be alerted every time an op is due, but those are options. And this obviously only happens if one of your op is scheduled. So that means that op has a start time when it can be performed, and it also has an end time when it should be completed by. The next trigger would be if an op is late. Now again, you can notify the people who are supposed to perform the op, and maybe this time the supervisor does want to know that the op is late, and therefore you can turn on that alert for the supervisor as well. These are all optional. The next one is if an op gets missed, which means that it's gone 24 hours past the end time that it was supposed to be completed. On this occasion, you're not going to be alerting the people who are supposed to perform it, but the supervisor almost certainly would want to know. And then the last type is when an op is completed. Again, this one would only go to a supervisor, and this notification can happen not only on the scheduled ops that have a start and an end time, but also on the ad hoc ops as well. So if you want to turn these notifications on or off, you would open up the op. So this time we're looking at our pest control op. And after you've defined what needs to be done, which site it needs to be done at, which is where, who needs to do it, which is the teams, and when it needs to be done, then you can go to the settings. The settings tab allows you to assign a supervisor. On this case, it's the management team, and the supervisor can either be a team or it could be a role, so certain types of people within the management team. And then you've got all of the different settings that we just talked about. So when it becomes due, do you want to notify the supervisor and or the people who can perform the op? When it becomes late, do you want to notify the supervisor and or the people who can perform the op? When it's missed, just the supervisor, and when it's completed, just the supervisor. If you come in here and you only see the option that to notify a supervisor when it's completed, and all the other options are not listed at all, it will be because the op is not scheduled. And if there's no scheduled, then we don't know when it's due, when it's late, or when it's missed. And that's the reason why they're not there. So you would add in a schedule, and then these options become available. So now let's talk about who would receive the notifications. We've already touched on it a little bit, but it's the people who perform the op, the people who carry out the task. So that's really your staff. And the thing that will control which staff receive the notification is to do with the settings inside your op. So where is that op to be performed? Which sites is it to be performed at? And who can perform the op, which roles and which teams? So if you've got a team that spans several sites, but this op is only for one site, it's only the people who work at that site that belong to those roles or teams that would receive the notification. And then the other people who are going to receive the notification are the supervisors as well. So now we've talked about what would trigger a notification for an op. We're going to talk about what triggers notifications for issues. Issues are slightly different because you don't need to turn on the notifications that you want, they just happen automatically. So every time a new issue is raised, that will trigger a notification. If an issue is reassigned or the owner of the issue is changed, that would also trigger an issue. Just to briefly touch on this, an issue can be assigned to someone, and that person, that role, that team is who is expected to actually be doing the work right then and there, the next action. The owner is really controlling it. It's who's ultimately responsible for the issue. It might be the same person, but it can be different people, and only the owner of an issue can close it. Every time a new comment is added on an issue, that can also trigger a notification. And every time the status changes will also trigger a notification. So when an op first gets raised, it has a new status. If you're managing the ops well inside the web app, then you can change that to in progress once you start work on it. And then once the work is complete, you can change the status again to complete. And therefore, when that is closed, when the issue is finished, that would also trigger a notification as well. So they're the notifications. How do you control which ones you want to get and whether you want to get them by email, in-app or push? Well, if you're a web app user, then you click on your icon at the top right of the screen and select My Profile. Then move over to the Preferences tab and you can choose, do you want notifications sent to your email address, yes or no? Do you want them sent to your mobile device, yes or no? If you turn both of these off, you will not receive any notifications at all, regardless of whether or not they're turned on in the op, for example. So this is like an overriding setting. And just while we're on this screen, if you haven't already done this, maybe you want to turn on the daily digest and weekly digest emails. So if you're not a web app user, so this is perhaps your staff using their own mobile devices, or maybe it's the team board, then they would click the More button at the bottom right of the screen. That's the 3 dots. They'll then see a screen that allows them to sort of click on their profile and access OpsBase, but the button you want to then click is the Preferences button. And once you've gone into the preferences, you'll see the same 2 toggles. Do you want the notification sent to the mobile device, yes or no? Do you want them sent to your email address, yes or no? So that is the run through of all of the features and the settings and the controls in relation to notifications. What I'm going to do now is have a quick look and see whether any questions have come in from the chat, and I'll do my best to answer those. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions just yet, so hopefully we answered any questions that you might have had, and it was quite easy to understand. If you do have any questions that come to you afterwards, then by all means send them to support@opsbase.com. But otherwise, thank you for taking the time to join me today, and we will speak to you soon.